Trustee Opsimer.
Here.
Trustee Sunland.
Here.
Trustee Wazinski.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. Well, we're going to start out today with a presentation from our Environmental Commission representatives about a new program they recently did, and I'm really excited, anxious to hear. And who's going to lead that discussion or that presentation? Mr. Harvey?
Hi, thanks for inviting us, carving some time out on your agenda. I probably don't have to tell you a whole lot about the that we had a tree planting initiative earlier last month, which involved quite a few members of the public. But I want to give you a little bit more of the background on that, which started right here amongst you. You are really the visionaries for what started as a green infrastructure demonstration project. And if it's okay to share my screen, I will. I'll just show a few slides and then invite anyone else who would like to add to chime in, because several of you were intimately involved with that effort the day of and also leading up to it. This is hot off the press, and some of these slides are in your packet. So I'm not going to go in too far into it, but the concept of green infrastructure, many of you know, is a way to control stormwater. It's an important piece of our stormwater management, and it's gaining more and more attention around the country in terms of a intentional way to complement our gray infrastructure and really reduce the chance of flooding, but also at the same time green our community. So I believe that was the original vision. There's lots of ways that green infrastructure can be integrated into your community as part of our open space preservation, our parks, urban forestry, climate adaptation strategies, and things like that. But trees are really more of a visible form of that green infrastructure. And part of the vision was not just to demonstrate green infrastructure, but to involve the community in a positive, feel-good experience with green infrastructure. And tree planting really seemed like the way to do that. We started the initiative once we heard about your support for a grant for green infrastructure. We were entrusted, the Environmental Commission was entrusted with coming up with a plan, and we put together a tree team, if you will, which involved experts from the community and also several volunteers on the Environmental Commission. We looked to experts like Irene Cahill, who's the urban forester in Lansing, who ended up joining us on that day to give us some advice with planting as well as placement of the trees. We pulled other experts too from around the region to just give us some advice. We also involved the green team as early as last winter in distributing trees and starting the education effort at the farmers market. This is Elaine, who was there during the tree planting day on October 3rd. She had also been in a similar booth in the same parking lot the week before, distributing snacks at the recycling event. Other members of our green team included Ellen Dillman, who staffed the winter market at the mall, giving out information about not just recycling, but the tree initiative. This summer, we were able to, in partnership with the Ames Conservation District, give out 460 trees. Some of you helped staff that table. Abby was there, Abby Titoff was there on October 3rd and gave away several dozen trees. And then members of our green team as well. Members of our staff included some of our utility workers, Ben McCann, James Arnett, Derek Robbs, Robert Stacy, Dan Palacios, Mike Love, Larry Bob, Josh Cannon, Don Kusan, Dan Inman, Tom Baker. They helped with unloading the trees the day before and are continuing to help by watering the trees. We also had help from the staff at Okemos School. And these are a couple of the folks on maintenance staff at Chippewa. Here's the principal of Chippewa. Here's another member of our staff, Emma Campbell, who was very instrumental in the day of, but also with her expertise. She brought her Michigan Conservation Corps tools along, and that was super helpful. Here's Emma standing with Irene and Michelle Belasker. Michelle Belasker with Ingham Conservation District was a key right-hand woman for this project. She donated trees from her tree sale in the spring and in the fall, and enabled us to give away 460 trees to residents and organizations in the through the table at the farmers market. These are some of the sturdy volunteers that showed up. We also had businesses such as Hammond Farms that contributed mulch for the trees. And one of the unsung heroes was Brian Van Order, who helped with the digging of 40 holes with this serious looking 3-foot auger. And just saved us probably about 40 volunteers worth of 40 volunteers, maybe 80 hours of digging. Here's this Bill McConnell who was on our tree team, hauling tools around. I don't know if Michelle is here tonight because I'm sharing my screen. If she is, I'd like to invite her to chime in a few minutes. But the Ingham Conservation District, I hope she'll be a partner this year as we continue the project. These are where some of the trees were planted at Chippewa, and Michelle helped with not just locating where the trees might go, but identifying a good source of sturdy native Michigan trees. Our next steps, we hope to do a mini grants to Hazlitt and Okemos schools in 2021. We're also involved with the green infrastructure audit of our code of ordinances. Some of you are helping with that. And we're hoping eventually to maybe be designated as a tree community. So some of our tree team, Rose Vadney, Jim Kibasa, and others are helping with that. We're imagining mini grants. It could be fairly flexible. It doesn't have to be tree planting. It could be other forms of green infrastructure like green roofs, planter boxes, rain gardens, bioswales, trenches, ponds. We want to involve students, and we want to give them some free rein for deciding what is most appropriate. Porous pavement is another one that another popular form of green infrastructure. Rainwater harvesting, etc. Are there any other members of our tree team or volunteers that would like to say a word or two? Derek was there that day, and it turns I discovered that he was an urban forester and a parks person in a previous lifetime, and was real helpful carting around dirt and trees. And of course, Treasurer DeShane was helpful in visioning the project, as well as helping on the day of the big planting. But thank you for letting us share a little bit more about this, and we look forward to a successful 2021. Anybody else? Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to, from the activity, want to get involved or say anything here? Mr. DeShane, yes.
Thank you, Supervisor. It really wasn't not just a good event, but a great event. And it was very much a cooperative effort. We had great staff involvement, thanks to Leroy and Derek rousing his crew. Okemos Schools got involved. We had over 50 volunteers, including, as you can see from the pictures, lots of younger volunteers. I know Trustee Wazinski had both of her teenagers out there and has been helping out all day. So thank you for that. And as Leroy mentioned, Michelle at the Ingham Conservation District was really awesome. We have great technical expertise on the Environmental Commission, Jim Kielbasa, is a retired MSU forestry professor. And he was a great deal of help in picking out the varieties and making sure we were putting them in the right places and the right trees, and other members of the commission as well. It was really an awesome event. What I think is most remarkable about it is that for so many people, it was a way to physically get out and do something at the time of the pandemic. Notice everyone had a mask on. We were out there and we were doing something about a global problem that's hard to get your hands around, but you can get your hands around those trees and grab them and haul them into these large holes that were dug for us and feed them with fertilizer and water them. And we're going to have amazing Chippewa grounds for the next 100 years because of this day. So hopefully we can expand it next year and do a similar project up in Hazlet. But Leroy provided exceptional leadership on this project. I want to thank him specifically for really bringing together lots of disparate groups and making it happen. So thank you, Leroy.
Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. Thank you, Leroy. Anyone else? I want to tell you, one of the things I worry about with tree planting projects is that they get planted and then people kind of forget about them. Well, a lot of those trees are behind my house at Chippewa, as you mentioned, and I see the township people out there refilling the water bags, and it makes me feel good. I know the trees are going to make it. Really appreciate that. Project, I'm sure community, sometimes tree huggers looked at as a negative. I think in Meridian, we look at tree huggers as a positive and appreciate this effort. Anyone have any questions or concerns? If not, we'll move on. Thank you again for the presentation. The citizens addressing agenda and non-agenda items, and I'm wondering if Mr. Geebies knows if there's anybody watching the meeting or online wanting to talk.
We, of course, can take telephone comment at 517-349-1232. If someone wants to make a comment. Otherwise, if you're in the attendee area, you can simply use the raise hand feature, and we will give you the ability to address the board directly through the Zoom interface. And we'll pause for just a second. 517-349-1232 and or raise hands if the supervisor wants to tell people how that will work, but I'm not seeing or hearing any comment at this time.
If anybody does decide to call in or to raise their hand, you will get 3 minutes. We prefer it if you address the board as a whole, not any individuals, and talk about issues to the extent possible that are on our agenda, although you can go to other matters if you need to. Mr. Geebies?
We have no calls at this time, sir. The meeting is yours.
All right, thank you. We will now go on to the Township Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, board. Just a few things to go over this evening. First thing I want to do is thank the Environmental Commission and everyone who was involved with that tree project. That's great. I also want to thank the management team. Pretty much everyone on the screen was involved with helping with the absentee ballot delivery the other night at 11 hours, and appreciate all their help. I sent you today a picture of what Joe's on Jolly is going to look like. And hopefully you all have a chance to see that. They were kind enough to go out the old Value Tire on Jolly and set up a banner sign of what it's going to look like. And it's very impressive if you haven't seen that sign yet. Reminder, the goal setting is on November 23rd, Monday evening, and you'll have your packets to you on November 13th, 10 days in advance of the meeting. I want to report that the deer management program is off to a fantastic start under Luann's and her department's leadership, but also the help from many, many people, including Public Works. Mike Ellis, who's a member of the Derek's team down there, and Luann's team, has been very, very helpful. But we're at 107 already, which is really, really outstanding for where we have been in the past year. Our goal is still 300, and we think we can get there with DNR approval. You're going to hear about Maggie and Megan Cole. Megan and Maggie Cole. They're from Chelsea. They go to MSU and they play field hockey, but they're also police cadets for us. They're twins. And Chief Plaga has urged us to take a look at both of them and sending them to the academy the same way we did. I believe it was Mr. Velasquez that we sent to the academy maybe 3 years ago. The board made the decision to do that and to allocate the funds to do that. It turned out to be a great decision. And I think it's going to be for Maggie and Megan Cole as well. They are going to be two outstanding officers for this department for many years to come. They will graduate in the December and start the academy right away. So I congratulate Chief Plaga for working with our Human Resources Director, Ms. Tehoff, on that. Pine Village in Hazlet is all set. Brownfield signed off on, and we're ready to go. And hopefully, with that staggered interest rate that the board came up with and was massaged a little bit by Mr. Opsamer, I believe that we can get this project going right away. It behooves them to get started. Let's put it that way. Director Clark has been talking with the Village of Okemos about getting the demolition started as soon as possible. We don't want any dragging of the feet. It's not, we've had enough of that. We want to move forward, and that's what we're working on. The Winslow Trailer Park on Grand River on the east side of town. We've had some concerns over the years about the condition of the trailers and cabins. We've had, I know, I think it was candidate Guthrie had some dealings with, if I recall correctly, you had some residents there who raised concerns during the election season, and those were brought forward. We just reached a consent order and a judgment with the owners of the park to make certain improvements that are pretty detailed to the trailers and cabins there to bring that up to Meridian standards. As all of you know, in October, we've always done something to recognize our 100 or so volunteers. That's been a tradition since I think that one of the things that Mr. Stike on this board started many years ago. Unfortunately, with the times that we're in, we can't do it this year, but we're working on ideas to come up with about how to still do something for our volunteers. We're working on that. We'll have more details later. The local roads, you'll have your list to you on your December 1 board meeting. You'll have the list for 2021. HVAC system is complete. It was on time. It was under budget. I credit Mr. Perry for his leadership on that. And plus everyone who had to put up with the different temperatures that we did this summer. The solar project, another thing led by Mr. Perry, it's finished, it's completed on the South Fire Station, but now also in the marketplace. So if you haven't been, that was completed since the last time we met. So if you haven't been by the marketplace, stop and take a look at the solar there. Ladder truck ordered within the next week is what we hope. And I want to close by thanking all of our residents, all 20-some thousand that voted and gave us overwhelming support for the police, fire, and land preservation millages. It's not often in these type of times where you can get 70% voter approval for, even though it was a millage renewal. We're very fortunate to have their support. That concludes my report, Mr. Supervisor, unless any of the board members have questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Manager Walsh? Okay, thank you for that report. It was an excellent one. You raised a very important thing, and that is the thank you to our residents. The millage for the police and the millage for the fire are critical to this community. We've had outstanding public protection by our agencies, and this will allow that to continue into the future. Also, I want to thank them for the new road with regard to land preservation with the lesser millage, but still a significant amount that will help keep the land that we already have put aside into preservation, into good environmental condition. And maybe, you know, if something comes along, we might still be able to purchase something. So we want to thank the voters for all of that. We now come to board member reports of activities and announcements. And let's start out with our clerk DREYFUS giving us an election report on the election that was held on Tuesday.
Thank you. This report is for the November 3rd, 2020 general election. I'll start with by providing a summary of election results and voter numbers, and then I'll provide a general overview of election operations. So to start with, we had a total of 33,980 registered voters in the township, and that's a pretty big increase. We've wavered the last few years, and I was surprised to see those numbers going up, because when we last really looked, we were closer to 31,000. So we've had an increase of well over 2,000 voters in the last few years. So 33,980 registered voters. We had 18,800 people vote AV. absentee voter ballots, and we had 7,011 people show up at the polls for a total of 25,811 people at the polls for a voter turnout of 76%. A little bit lower than what I would have expected. That's partially due to those extra 2,000 voters in the numbers, because if those weren't there, that number would have been a lot higher. So that number was surprisingly less than what I thought for sure would have been a minimum of an 80% turnout. So voter turnout was 76%. By a percentage, 73% of the votes was cast AV, and 27% of the voters were voting in person at the polls. There was a total of 20,349 AV ballots issued, and 18,800 ballots were returned for a 92.3% AV return rate, which is statistically about the same as what we've had the last few years. So even though we had much smaller numbers of AV ballots sent out over the last few years, we always had typically around a 92%, 93% return rate. And statistically, it was interesting to note that that number held up the same even with this particular election in place. So that's the overview of the election. Now we'll get into some of the quick, we're going to do a very brief specifics. I asked, we've been, of course, been very busy. I'll come to that in a moment. Today was the day that yesterday, after such long hours, we only worked a partial day yesterday. I had my deputy clerk prepare the election results today. We were dealing with issues from the Board of Canvassers, and my deputy clerk provided the results. She unfortunately left off a couple of things. The Republican results were not present for a couple of races. I will present that if people are interested at the next board meeting, and certainly can include that in the board packet for the next one as well. So we are missing I have the county results. We don't have the Meridian Township results for presidential votes and how that was split up. For senator, we have Gary Peters, the Democratic incumbent, received 17,469 votes. John James, the Republican, received 7,809 votes. Representative for Congress, 8th District, Alyssa Slotkin, the incumbent Democrat, received 17,702 votes, and Paul Young, the Republican challenger, received 7,414 votes in Meridian Township. For our state legislature, 69th District, Julie Brixey, the Democratic incumbent, received 17,359 votes. Grace Norris, the Republican challenger, received 7,336 votes. For the county, we did not get the report that was put together, did not include the Republican challengers. I just have the Democratic candidates, all who won office, all the incumbents won office at the county level. So Carol Seaman, prosecuting attorney, received 16,911 votes. Scott Rigglesworth, sheriff, Democrat, received 18,341 votes. Clerk Barb Byram, Democrat, received 17,801 votes. Treasurer Eric Schertzing, Democrat, received 17,135 votes. Register of Deeds Derek Quinney received 16,525 votes, Democrat. Drain Commissioner Patrick Lindeman, Democrat, received 17,003 votes. In the 11th County Commissioner District, Emily Stivers, the incumbent Democrat, received 6,884 votes. And in the 12th County Commissioner District, Mark Polsdorfer, Democrat, incumbent, received 7,742 votes. For the township, all township positions ran unopposed. There were only Democrats on the ballot, and the numbers are: for supervisor, Ron Steiker received 19,041 votes. Township clerk Deb Guthrie received 18,966. Township treasurer Phil DeShane received 18,773. Township trustees Patricia Jackson received 17,577. Dan Opsimer, 17,479. Kathy Sundlin, 17,136. Courtney Wazinski, 17,323. Parks commissioners, Mary Nardo Farris received 16,881. Amanda Lick, 16,900. Michael McDonald, 16,596. Mark Stevens, 16,646. Amy Van Antwerp, 16,701. For proposals, the proposals also were not broken down. The statewide ones and the county was not broken down. So I only have the aggregate numbers of which they passed. Of course, proposal 1, 2, and 3 all passed. For the breakdown of the local Meridian EMS millage, 19,760 yes, 4,014 no. So it passed by a very large margin. Meridian Township Land Preservation, 17,960 yes, 5,564 no, it passed. And Meridian Township Police, 16,578 yes, 7,142 no. So that is the numbers for the election results. Let's talk globally about what happened for the election. We had, of course, the polls are open at 7, closed at 8. We had an AB counting board that was no longer taking place in the sheriff's office. It was moved to the Ingham County Fairgrounds. Let's start with the absentee voting. The absentee ballots were all accumulated and reconciled the day before the election on Monday, November 2nd. And when we stopped accepting absentee ballots by state law at 4 p.m., we began reconciling all 19 precincts. We had the county there, and we counted together with the county and our township staff so that we had an accurate count. We then packaged up all of the ballots. We used, we had Stephen Geebies and Derek both serving as a D and an R, and they certified the packing of them into certified ballot containers, as well as transporting them to Mason, of which I followed behind them. At the county, we unloaded them, and then the ballots were processed starting at 7 a.m. today. They used about 14 township employees, and they used approximately 40 other election workers that they had from various sources. And they used 4 lines, 2 high-speed tabulators, and their processing concluded at approximately 8:30 p.m. and they did only Meridian Township. We had the polls opening at 7. We had lines reported at all precincts pretty much for most of the morning and early afternoon in most locations. In several of the precincts, it was due to either insufficient tables or partially due to insufficient voting areas due to COVID restrictions. And I had to go to several places and try to reconfigure the room. And we had to make it as tight as possible, particularly at the Hazlitt High School, with 2 precincts that were co-located there. Precincts 3 and 6 were together there. And that was a tight room because it was a very small room. So I went there and we did reconfigure it and made it as safe as possible, but added a number of voting stations, and the lines went down fairly substantially. The lines also were due to the fact it was a longer ballot with a number of proposals, and voters take longer to review ballots that have a number of proposals, especially tax proposals on them. So we had more people staying longer at the voting areas. We also had, again, with spatial issues, we also had COVID spatial issues with the 6-foot that created much longer lines, literally just due to the physical space that we tried to keep between people. Some cases, lines literally went out the building and went down the sides of buildings. Sometimes they wrapped around and snaked around when possible. We didn't have really many issues. Most of the ballots, we didn't have any provisional ballots. We had very few issues. We had no open carry issues. We had no threat issues. We did have one issue with the VAT with one voter that has experienced issues in the past. She was very upset about that, and we did discuss that. It's been an ongoing issue. She has concerns with the actual use of the VAT itself, and complimented and praised the staff at the polling location for trying to work with her and solve the problem. She came into the township and also tried us to help us. She's most concerned about the fact that someone else her assistant needed to help her. And so the assistant had a chance to look at the ballot to help her. And she really expects to want to have a ballot like anyone else that nobody can see with 100% privacy. So she did get a ballot, her ballot and her voice was heard, but through the process, she had an assistant have to help her as well. So this has been an ongoing issue, and it's been reported again to state officials, the Bureau of Elections, the county, and to us as well. And so it's something that's definitely still attempted to be worked on. Other than that, we had several people use the VAT in other areas and had no problems reported using it. We had tabulators down in one location specific. We had them down temporarily, real brief, but they came up, but one was down for more than 2 hours. The machine basically bit the dust. There was, we had our technical service person out there. We called our vendor, we called the county, and ultimately, luckily, we had a backup machine when I ordered from the grant process back 4 years ago. Remember there was questions, I ordered 20 instead of 19. Well, it's just for that reason. We had a backup machine that we're able to use. I also, Election Source, our vendor that got the contract, didn't do us any good. We called them in the afternoon, reported the issue early in the afternoon after we were trying to solve it ourselves. And I reported it directly to the tech in Grand Rapids, and they said they're going to pass it to our Ingham County field technician, and we never heard from them the rest of the day. Very disappointing. The service with Election Source is spotty. They have a contract with maintenance paid for. Very disappointing. We never even heard from them the rest of the day. They had literally 5.5 hours to get back with us, and we never heard from them. We did contact them again today and are trying to, our backup machine wound up developing problems as well. It started chewing up the ballots, literally grinding some ballots and causing physical damage to ballots. Luckily, that was at the conclusion of what we needed to do. So we have 2 tabulators that are in need of full repairs right now at the end of this election cycle. As for any other issues, we didn't have any voter intimidation or harassment complaints. We didn't have any complaints about people violating the campaign laws in terms of within the 100-foot or the 20-foot. We had challengers at locations. We had no official challenges that I'm aware of. We had many observers throughout the precincts. And again, there was no feedback that was negative that I'm aware of. We did have a Secretary of State person going around, and she presented some observations about ways that we can improve what we're doing. One of the precincts didn't have signs right on the sidewalk in front. We had signs where people drive into the parking lot. We had big "Vote Here" signs, but somewhere along the way, one of the small signs was not there. So she pointed out some things like that we can improve, and gave us some tips along the way. And so we're grateful to have somebody go around. She's going around with her daughter, so her daughter was excited, 7-year-old, to get involved. She'll probably be an election inspector, and maybe even further in the future. So that's basically a summary of the election results. We're waiting for the board of canvassers to get back with us. We have a few minor issues right now that we're gonna have to resolve, including some people not signing the tapes. We had a precinct leave early without getting the AV ballots. The issue with the AV ballots coming to the precincts was somewhat problematic. I believe that a big mistake was made about a week and a half ago. We knew for sure that Meridian was going to be the only precinct, the only municipality being counted as part of the AV counting board. And at that point, we should have really been able to take all the AV ballots right to the county at 8 p.m. because the infrastructure was in place. They could have processed them all in a half an hour, easy half an hour, and process all of them. And it would have saved all the precincts, spent an additional 2 to 3 hours processing the AV ballots. That's what took a long time to get all the local precincts to balance out, was the AV ballots. Most of them had no experience with it, and it was complicated, and they had to duplicate some ballots because of mistakes made on the ballots that we could legally duplicate. And none of it needed to be that way. A much more efficient method would have been to deliver all the ballots at 8 p.m. straight to the AV counting board, and they would have been done with it less than 30 minutes later. So I believe that was an efficiency error that should have been noted by the county, because I wasn't aware of it until really, really late in the process, that there was only one county. That was the main reason they said they couldn't do it, was due to multiple jurisdictions, but that wasn't the case. So that's a lesson learned for the future. If there's only one municipality in an AV counting board, do not have the ballots be distributed to all the precincts. It just adds a lot of confusion and hassles and is unnecessary, basically. So if anybody has any questions, that's the election report currently.
Any questions for the clerk on the election report? I see no. Thank you for the report, Clerk Dreyfus. Any other board members have reports of activities or announcements that they want to make? You're muted, Treasurer.
Thank you. Couple of quick report. Yesterday, I attended the Environmental Commission with Trustee Wazinski, who is our liaison of the Environmental Commission, where we talked about some of the projects that Mr. Harvey discussed. This morning, I attended the Economic Development Corporation meeting, which Trustee Sunland serves as the board member on, and I am the treasurer, but a non-voting member. I do want to draw attention in your packet to the treasurer's report, which is item 9F. The one remarkable thing about the report compared to past reports is the third page, you'll see we have 8,842,000 in road improvement investments. This report was prepared at the end of September. The commercial bank $1 million CD was spent on the last of the road repairs, but it does leave us with $8 million approximately for the next 2 years. So that, as you, I'm sure all recall, our road millage allows us to spend approximately $4 million a year on road improvements. So that's those, you'll see 4 more will mature next year for the 2021 road improvements, and 4 more will mature in 2022. Also in the packet, you will see a report from me, item 9G, on delinquencies that are being moved to the tax bill. And the board sees this every year. What's salient about this one is that you'll see we have delinquent utilities on that report in the amount of $23,120.52. We have, as you know, some of the lowest water and sewer rates, so it's really important that we collect every dollar that we can. The reason this number is higher than past years is we are not doing shutoffs. In this COVID pandemic, the board has decided and the governor has decided this is not a time for shutoffs. And so we really have no recourse to collect these delinquencies except to put them on the tax bill. And if they remain unpaid in the tax bill, they get turned over to the county, and the county treasurer will then work to collect this money. And if unsuccessful, it can be a reason for foreclosure. So we are hopeful that these get paid on the tax bill and it doesn't go any further than that. Those are my 2 reports in the consent packet. Open to any questions that any board member may have.
Any questions for the treasurer? Any other reports from other trustees or board members? Okay, then we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Does someone want to make a motion?
Trustee Jackson has her hand up for a report.
Okay, there she is. Couldn't find her on my screen there for a minute. Trustee Jackson.
I just wanted to take a minute to let everyone know that the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission has prepared its 25-year regional transportation plan. They are going to publicly present this draft at a virtual meeting on the 10th of November. And that for 2 weeks after that, up until November, I think the 24th, they're open to public comments on this plan. And so I urge anyone who's interested in what vision that has been prepared for the area for the next 25 years to look at that plan, to arrange to attend that meeting on the 10th and to comment. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. And I'll try to look harder. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I was too caught up in the election itself, so I couldn't see the forest for the trees. I need to heartily thank the 150 plus election workers that work the polling locations in the AV County Board. I want to thank the temporary full-time, up to full-time employees that worked internally in our township hall room, and also our full-time election staff. I want to thank all of them for the extremely hard work, the long hours, and the dedication to our democracy, and to help make this election function. And without them, we would not have been able to do this. We have elderly people literally all the way from their 70s up through even their early 90s that are working these precincts and working 16-hour days because they care. They're not just doing it to make a few $100. They're doing it because they really care. And it's hard work. Anybody that sees it and has been around knows that it's difficult. And we've had some comments from new election workers saying, I had no idea what people have been doing all these years. I had no clue, which is why I always said it's like an iceberg. Icebergs are 10% visible, 90% invisible. Elections are the same way. And the election workers are part of that 90% that people don't see and understand. And our residents are amazing because they step up to the plate. And again, they're willing to do what it takes. So I thank them amidst COVID precautions, amidst concerns about their safety, amidst concerns about volatile citizens and the rights, amidst changing election law up until the last minute. For example, carrying concealed weapons was open carry was changed within like 72 hours, it seems like, of the election. All of this uncertainty, and our community members stepped up to the plate. Our own clerk staff stepped up to the plate. We worked a lot of long hours, a lot of overtime, and we still did it in a cost-effective manner. We didn't hire, other communities might, even Lansing hires a lot more people proportionate than we do. So we still operate in a semi-tight confines. Physically, we just don't have enough space. We could have used a few more workers and taken the burden off a few of our internal people. So a hearty thank you personally and from all the citizens on behalf of Meridian citizens. Thank you for the wonderful jobs that you guys did.
Thank you, Clerk, and thank you, as you said, to everyone involved. Yes, Trustee Wazinski.
Real quick, just wanted to update on our diversity, equity, and inclusion workforce, our task force. We did have a follow-up meeting with the directors post survey results to get input from all of our directors on what's happening and where we'd like to see the task force go. We'll do a follow-up meeting with the directors, or a follow-up survey with the directors, and then determine our next steps from there. So thank everybody, all the directors, for their time and input into that specific survey.
Thank you. I'm pleased that group is moving forward, continuing on the task. Any other board members? All right, now we'll go to the approval of the agenda. We need a motion. Gee, nobody wants to approve agenda? Clerk DREYFUS.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Supported by the treasurer. All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda, put their hand in front. Okay, I saw hands from everyone. All right, thank you. 7-0, Mr. DREYFUS.
Got it.
Okay, we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda has a number of items today. Communications, minutes from October 20 virtual meeting, bills, the ratification of new full-time firefighter paramedic appointment, the ratification of a new police officer appointment, treasurer's quarterly report, in addition to the December 2020 tax bills. Is there a motion to adopt or approve rather the consent agenda? Clerk DREYFUS.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Support.
Supported by treasurer. Any comments or needs to change anything as far as pulling off of there? Don't see any. Then we need a roll call vote.
Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Trustee Jackson.
Did you say Jackson?
Trustee Jackson, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer.
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Supervisor Stika.
Yes.
Clerk DREYFUS votes yes. Consent agenda approved 7-0.
Thank you very much. No questions for the attorney, no hearings today. Move on to number 12, action items. The first action item is the Grettenberger Drain and Meyer Drain improvements. This is for action today. Can we have a motion? Clerk, treasurer. You're muted. There you go.
I move to approve the Grettenberg Drain Resolution and the Meyer Drain Resolution and authorize the Township Supervisor and the Township Clerk to sign the associated Grettenberg petition for maintenance and improvements of a drain and the Meyer petition for maintenance and improvement of a drain as presented.
Support.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Opsimer. All right. Discussion, treasurer.
Sure. We discussed this at length at a previous meeting. Got a very good explanation from our Ingham County Road Department staff. We know this is going to be dovetailed very tightly with the Grand River improvements and the possible raising of Grand River near and Okemos Road at that intersection. It's necessary, and we are likely to have a flood or two before it gets fixed. But finally, this is a path to improve that very low area in the floodplain right at the corner of one of our busiest corners, Grand River and Oakham's Road. So it's well overdue and very much a needed improvement to our drain system.
Very good. Mr. Perry, is there anything new to add to this? I think the treasurer summed it up pretty well, but do you have anything else?
I really don't have anything new to add. If the board members have some additional questions, though, the representatives from the Drain Commissioner's office are available. But again, I think the treasurer succinctly put it all together for everyone.
Okay. Any further discussion? We did have a quite extensive discussion last time about this. All right, then we need a roll call, Mr. Dreyfus.
Trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stika,
Yes.
clerk Dreyfus votes yes, and treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Our next item, and I know it came into your packets a little late, but it's just two appointments that were ready to be done. We had applicants, and these are vacancies that have been there, so thought it was good to fill them. I'm recommending, if you look at item 12B, the appointment of Chanel Russ to the Land Preservation Board. She's also was recommended by the Luann Maisner and the staff for that position. And also to confirm my appointment of Joshua Patterson to the Transportation Commission. He's somebody with a lot of legislative experience. I think he'll add a lot to the that particular organization, the Transportation Commission. Trustee Opsimer.
Yes, I move to appoint Chanel Russ to lead the Land Preservation Board.
Is that for term ending 12/31?
Appoint Chanel Russ to the Land Preservation Advisory Board for a term ending 12/31/23, and to confirm the supervisor's appointment of Josh Robertson to the Transportation for a term ending 12/31/21.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Trustee Jackson, all right. Anything you want to say on this, Mr. Opsimer?
Yes, you know, Chanel Russ has a wonderful background, and her landscape design experience, and as an ecological designer, will be a wonderful contribution to the Land Preservation Advisory Board, and we're happy to have all of our appointments filled after having some lengthy vacancies due to turnover over the past several months. And then Josh Robertson is actually someone that I've worked with down at the state capitol for quite some time. He has a wealth of public policy experience and will be a great addition to the Transportation Commission, and is very eager to get involved in the community. So I fully support both recommendations that the supervisor has brought to us this evening.
Yeah, and with regard to Mr. Robertson, Patterson, rather, Joshua, anyway, it was, I thought, very appropriate too, because we lost from our membership an individual who was very much involved with the Township Association and had a lot of skills with regard to a policy, and so this would fill that void. Anyone else? And we need a vote. Clerk Dreyfus.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
supervisor Stika,
Yes.
clerk Dreyfus votes yes, treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
trustee Jackson,
Yes.
trustee Opsimer.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And now move on to 12C, the COVID-19 Work from Home Program. And I believe this is something that Mr. Walsh wants to address with us first.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Board. Obviously, everyone knows over the past 2 or 3 weeks, the second round of COVID has hit us and everyone very hard. We the issue or our challenge was exacerbated today with a positive test in one of our departments, and which is going to cause a ripple effect for our organization. And we're really going to have to rethink how we're serving the public right now and how we're taking and more importantly, taking care of all of our team members, all 165. So what we're requesting this evening is the approval, the appropriation of the funds that were set aside for hazard pay, which is around $69,000. We were reimbursed that by the federal government. And we want to use those funds to purchase laptops and printers and Chromebooks and iPads and all of that to equip our team to be able to work from home. And we're not shutting the buildings down at this point. We just want to have some flexibility and have a hybrid program where we can have some people working at home and some people in the building, and it really just a hybrid system. So that's the request before you this evening. I don't have to tell all of you, it's a very challenging time for us. And usually we're talking about ordering fire trucks and projects and building things and doing pathways, and all that's wonderful. But right now, our focus is on simply taking care of our people the best that we possibly can. We don't have all the answers. There's going to be challenges ahead for us as to how we do this. How do we make it equitable among all departments? But we'll do the best we can. But that's the request that's before you this evening. Thank you very much.
And by way of explanation as to why this is on action and not discussion first, Michigan has been experiencing a rather grim increase in COVID cases and deaths, and that has been even more true in the area that centers around East Lansing and Lansing, the university here, and everything else. So the manager felt, and I agreed, we should put this on for action and get this going as quickly as possible. So we need a motion. Mr. Opsmer?
Yes, I move to approve the township manager's recommendation to appropriate $69,000 to enhance our IT efforts in providing a Meridian Township safe work from home program.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wazinski. Discussion. Mr. Opsmer?
Yes, my only recommendation to the manager would not be to be frugal if more is needed. Please bring that to the board's attention. You're a great fiscal steward and manager in that regard, but in these difficult times, this is not an area where we need to be skimping. We need to make sure that everyone is able to maximize their work productivity and while doing it safely. So we need to maximize on both sides of that equation, and IT is obviously an essential component to doing that. So please, from my perspective, bring any and all necessary needs to the board's attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clerk DREYFUS.
So I'm just curious about, is there really a need to, it looks like the vast majority of this money that the motion is to pay for laptops. So don't most employees already have laptops? Because once this passes, laptops or equipment like that, tends to lose value very quickly. So I'm just curious as to why we need to provide laptops for every employee to work at home. It seems like most employees already have that available.
No, as a matter of fact, we talked about at our staff meeting today and on Monday, which all of us were a part of. We have a lot of people, we've done a survey among people, and no, we have a lot of people who don't have access to one. And some people that do, they don't necessarily want to use the personal one for their work responsibilities. So it's not going to everyone. There's some people who are equipped to handle it, but time is not on our side right now. And so we want to move forward, and there may be people that we think need one that don't need one and won't get one, but we'll deal with that accordingly. Mr. Givas has a good firm hand on what we need.
Other discussion? Yes, Treasurer.
Yes, and to answer the clerk's question, in my department, I've got 4 people that will be working from home half-time. And none of them have a township issued laptop. We want them all to be productive at home. None of them have a township issued cell phone either. I really don't want my staff calling the public on their own personal line, giving them a utility reminder or a tax reminder. That's it. That would be unsafe for our employees and inappropriate. So we're going to need to outfit each of them with a new laptop so they can make best use of the halftime they're working from home, and a cell phone to make sure that they're safe. And I want to applaud the manager for bringing this forward, and the forethought that came with it, and the fact that we have a positive COVID-19 case today is only incidental. But I know you were working on this well before we found out this morning that we have a positive case. You know, the current infection rate in the county is about 1.7%, and with 165 employees, that says that we should have had by that number 3 employees already who would have gotten it at just that rate. So we're fortunate, and that we haven't so far. I think it's due to the precautions the manager has insisted upon up at this point. I do remember an email from him saying that there are not many things that he will fire someone on the spot for, but one of them is going around the township hall without a mask on. And that got people's attention, and you will not find people in Meridian Township Hall without a mask on. And that's for employees. And if a visitor comes in, they are immediately asked to put a mask on before they go anywhere in the building. In the paper today, I saw that there are 96 suspected COVID-19 cases in Sparrow and McLaren tonight. 14 were on ventilators, 19 of them are in intensive care. And there are more people hospitalized today than when the pandemic hit in March and April. So Trustee Opsimer is correct. We need to be prepared for this. This has come back. It's come back stronger, and the winter months have only started. So we've got 3-4 months of this before we're likely to see a break with the weather and these numbers go back down again. So this is absolutely essential. And again, I'm glad that we're addressing it now and being as preventative as we are.
Trustee Wazinski.
I also just want to commend the manager. This is a hard decision. It's going to take a lot of work. You have a great team, so I know that that you'll do everything you can. So I really do appreciate that, and keeping all of our staff and our public, health in the forefront. And we had to add to Treasurer DeShane, we had one death, our first death at Sparrow this evening. So the rates are high as they were in April, and they're going to accelerate just because we are coming into these winter months where there's holidays and people are going to be gathering and they're not going to be outside. Just based on some of our past performance from our folks, as well as this rise started right at the beginning of when the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that the emergency powers by the governor were unconstitutional. So I feel like as local government, we really have to step up to protect our residents. It's really, really imperative that we do our job. And again, I just commend you, Manager Walsh, for being so very proactive.
DREYFUS.
I had a question about the start date. Is this effective December 7th then? There's been some questions. I've heard people in the building was thinking that it might be starting before then. Is this effective, the hours alternating starting on December 7th, or is it another time?
I sent an email to everyone this morning, which you should have received, that said that, and it was actually before the EDC meeting this morning, so it was before 7:30 a.m., before we found out that we had the positive test, and stating that we can't wait till December. It's a month away and it's too long. And I also want to, while I have the floor, if you don't mind, I want to thank Director Tehoff and Director Clark. Director Clark has been through a work home program for the City of Jackson, and our very fine HR director, Abby, has been with us with the justice with the Supreme Court. So she brings that very valuable experience to us on this front. We're having a Zoom meeting, as you probably are aware, Mr. Clerk, tomorrow at 11 o'clock to talk to our staff about this and get their input and their ideas on how we're going to do this. I don't have all the answers tonight. I just think that it's probably going to go into effect next week. But I want to wait and hear from all of our team members tomorrow before making any decisions on it. But it certainly will not be 4 weeks from today. It will be next week, and there will be hiccups and bumps along the way. I know that it won't be perfect.
Other board members? All right, then we're ready to vote on this.
All right. Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stika,
Yes,
Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
she's mute. I think
Yes,
she
I'm
is.
sorry.
There you go.
Trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, that's the end of our action items. We're now moving on to our discussion items. We have two tonight. The first one is the Walnut Hill update. And Manager Walsh, who are we calling on for that?
That would be me, and it's going to update you that the strategy that this board implemented about waiting and giving the parties time to work together on this issue of demolition and us not getting involved and ended up meddling into their affairs has worked well. They've reached an agreement, and I believe they're closing.
For the public, because they're not necessarily following it, you're kind of in the middle. Who's they?
They would be the current property owners and the family
Okay.
that wants to purchase the property.
Thank you.
Yes, the two sides have come together on I understand, a purchase price that involves demolition, takes everything into consideration. And I understand that they're closing on Monday. And at that time, we'll be divulging who's involved in this. And then we'll be working. I did ask the family, the people purchasing the property. I asked them how soon before the clubhouse will be raised, and they provided me a one-word response immediately. So they're already lining people up. This is going to move forward. Our strategies work perfectly. We're going to get what we wanted and when we want it without having to spend any more dollars through legal counsel or through the court system. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but things are moving forward with a closing date of Monday.
Thank you. And we still have our order in our back pocket should anything untoward happen, such as it falling apart, which we will not. But any questions for the manager on this? Anything else on the Walnut Hills demolition? Okay, then we're ready to move on to our, oh, yes, Trustee Opsimer, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just want to thank Manager Walsh for all the time and energy that's gone into this and working with the family to make sure that there was preparedness on their part to proceed very quickly with this. And hopefully on Monday we will, and in a week or two, hence then we will actually have a final conclusion to this issue. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to acknowledge Manager Perry's work on this, Director Kieselbach, and Principal Planner Menser. The three of them and our team has been very involved with this project and communicating back with the family. We have good relationships right now with all parties that are involved with this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark, Derek, and Peter. And it's great to see a final resolution to an issue that spanned at least the last 6 months pretty intensely.
Yes, thank you to everyone, and looking forward to the neighbors being happy also with those buildings being gone. Okay, anything else on this? Then we will move on to 13B, which is the Hickory Island Alley. We have some materials in our packet. I believe Mr. Perry will be talking to us about this.
Yes, good evening, Supervisor Stika, members of the board. Normally I like to have, some form of resolution or a plan plotted moving forward. Unfortunately with this one, it seems to keep stymieing me. However, I think it's important that the board kind of be brought up to speed where we're at on this issue because we have been working on it internally here for about 6 or 7 months. I'm going to share my screen because I think that's probably the best way to kind of describe some some of the areas that we're going to be talking about.
And basically, what is the issue, Mr. Perry?
So around Lake Lansing, in our northeast corner of the township, we have several public access points that the residents of Meridian Township can use to access Lake Lansing. And the ability and the way they can access that does vary, though, depending on the actual parcel, whether it's a road end, a county park, a private road end access point that only belongs to the neighborhood association. So there's a lot of varied ways that these have been created over time as the township developed. One area that we've been working on closely is down here in the southeast corner, the Hickory Island access point, and it's actually an alley. When the subdivision was platted, it's what we call a paper street. There's no road there. However, there is a driveway there that's utilized by one of the property owners. One of the contention really is the property owner here feels that he doesn't have control over his access point to Hickory Island Street. This is an aerial photo of it. So you have three property owners here. You have the Chens at 1356, you have the Taunts at 1350, and then you have the McPhees at 1340. And this dirt driveway is actually within the township's alley, which goes all the way to the lake edge, which is shown here kind of on this parcel map. This is a alley, a paper street. The county vacated that to the township at some point, and the township took it over as a jurisdictional control. So we don't own title to the property, which restricts our ability to do certain things with it. Unlike, a township park or the parcel that the municipal building sits on. We just don't have certain rights with that. We have jurisdictional control over treating it as an alley, basically ingress and egress to the lake. Well, the issue is the property owner, Mr. Taunt, Dr. Taunt at 1350, he was hoping that we could carve out a piece of that to provide him an access point to his house, really create a new driveway that he could pave, control, and maintain over time. What's been happening historically is that he's been maintaining the property, cutting the grass, and plowing the gravel driveway, which really is the alleyway. So we were looking for a permanent fix for him, but also preserving the public's right to access the lake. Again, what's really stymied us now is because we don't own this parcel in fee simple control, we can't really parse out a portion of it to allow him then to take ownership of it. We just don't have that ability. So really, we're left with two options. One would be to essentially go through a vacation process. The downside to that is then the township basically would lose control. The property would go to the three property owners that currently have interest in it. We're investigating a potential where maybe we could do some type of multi-step agreement that would allow vacation, but as soon as that occurred, it would revert back to the township and fee simple ownership, which then we could try to convert. So it sounds very complicated. We're willing to explore that, but I'm not sure what kind of level of promise that allows for. Or in my mind, the second option is potentially to do a special assessment district like we would for any other public street that wanted to be improved, where we get the petition process. The property owners that have benefit for this alleyway could pay to have it paved, just like we would any gravel road in the township. And then at least that we could work out a maintenance agreement that would allow them to maintain it, plow it, that kind of thing. So really that's the issue in a nutshell. It's very complicated, but I wanted to get this before the board. So if we do have the opportunity to come up with some type of resolution, you wouldn't be seeing it with fresh eyes. So again, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them, but that's really the issue tonight. And I'm looking for the
And
supervisor.
their supervisor's having some connection problems right now. We're trying to get him back in now. It sounds like he's going to need to at least reboot a computer, so it's going to be a few minutes.
Okay, so I will take over running the meeting. Thank you, Deputy Manager Perry. Are there questions from the board for Deputy Manager Perry? Treasurer DeShane has a question, and go ahead.
Yes, my question, Mr. Perry, is are we going to be able to access the public access of this alley in all of these outcomes that you're looking at?
That would be the ultimate goal, absolutely. We don't, unless the board has a different direction, which then we could just do a simple vacation. But my sense is the board wants to maintain that public access to the lake, and that's kind of been the goal from day one. With the caveat, also trying to help one of our residents with a solution.
Well, speaking as a board member, I definitely want, that would be a top priority of mine, while also respecting the adjoining properties, and so we don't infringe upon their property rights either. I also want to take a minute to thank our trustee Opsimer, because I know he has been involved in this and working with some of the homeowners and bringing this to the attention of staff and helping us to find a resolution for that. And we do all get calls from residents about issues, and they want us to fix these issues and address them. And of course, we all do our best. But Trustee Opsimer, I know, has taken extra efforts in this case and really worked with staff and worked with the three property owners to try and find the best solution for it. And I know it's taken a lot of time and a busy season for him. So I do want to thank him for that effort.
And so to Treasurer DeShane's point, just to fill in the background, there is a neighbor across the street, in addition to the neighbor that is just off of Hickory Island to the north, with the lakefront property owner to the north of them, right along the lakefront. But this neighbor to the south of Hickory Island Street has also observed some activity on the site with the public alley and the public utilizing the public alley for, launching kayaks. You might take your kayak down it, which is a legal use of the alley, and launch it. What you can't do in its current legal state is kind of set up. You could not put a blanket down or a towel and kind of lay down by the water, or kind of, you can't really set up by the water to fish or do any activity. But you can use it for ingress and egress to the water. So the traditional use is that residents, the tier 2 residents, as we often refer to them, based on the special assessment for the Lake District, will use it to launch kayaks, or just to walk down and then walk back up. It's common for the public just to kind of walk down, take a look at the water, and walk back out on their walks as well. And actually, Chief Plaga, as he knows, had several members of our police department called out to the site. What really came about is we had the lakefront property did change hands. And so in the early going, the status of this public access was not fully known to that property owner, I suspect. What I've encouraged Deputy Manager Perry to work on, from my standpoint, what I think is helpful is, as Treasurer DeShane said, keeping that public access, but making it more defined so that the public knows and understands what we can and can't do with that. And we had conversations about, could this be a park, and could we enhance the use of it in a way that would not infringe on the neighbors adjacent to it. But running up against all these legal issues, it appears that probably won't be the case. So based on our limitations legally, what I've expressed to Deputy Manager Perry for the best optimal solution is finding some way that the owner can properly maintain their ingress and egress to the property, and also so that we could do some enhancement, or at least posting wayfinding signage and making it clear that this is a public alley. So we did put white posts out on the street front to kind of denote the entryway, but it's still, to a passerby that doesn't live on the street, they wouldn't really know the use of the site, what is permitted and what isn't permitted. But really in this area, it's not as big of an issue here because it's really the immediate neighbors that are using it. Lake Lansing North being so close by, the general public often just drives a little bit further to the north end of the lake. And we have Supervisor Stika back. Do you have a good connection?
I'm on my phone using that for my connection. That's no problem. I'm here. I've heard everything you said.
And Treasurer DeShane spoke, and that's where we're at. And I will let you resume running the meeting.
Well, is there anyone else that needs to comment on this? If not, I guess we're ready to move on to comments from the public.
Trustee Wazinski has her hand up.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, on my phone, I'm very limited at this thing. So please, if you speak out, if you want to be called on. Trustee Wazinski, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have a question for Deputy Director Perry. So I'm looking at the aerial, and I apologize because this is the first time I'm seeing this. But how did this happen? How did we get a driveway that's directly within the alley? And it looks as if there's no other, maybe very close to the south neighbor, if in fact they had to put it in a driveway that's not within that right of way.
There's a very, very long title history I'd love to share with you sometime if you'd like to read it. But essentially, I think what's transpired is the alley, the purpose of the alley was to service that parcel. And over time, for whatever reason, the road department decided to vacate it, and the township, I think, took control because they recognized, well, we really can't landlock that parcel. So that's why the township is, again, we're not in the business owning roads and alleys, but in this case, we do, at least jurisdictional control over it. So essentially anyone could utilize that alley. And as you can imagine, that does create some trepidation, obviously, for the property owner too, because in all intents and purposes, he's treated it as his private driveway, but that, from legal standpoint, is not what it is. It's a gravel alley that services his property that then ultimately transitions to his driveway on his property. And really, he has some legitimate concerns, which I get. How do I maintain this? Should I be grading it? What about snow removal? Those kinds of things. So at the end of the day, we're trying to find a resolution that gives him some satisfaction, but also, preserves the public's right to ingress and egress that lake.
Thank you. I would just add that I also support that however we can keep it accessible to the public, I think is really important here. Thank you.
Thank you. If someone else wants to speak on this, please speak out. Mr. Perry, you want to summarize where we are now?
Again, the purpose of this really was, I was hoping to have some sort of resolution prepared that we could discuss, but we're not at that point. I see kind of two options going forward, and we'll have to continue to work with our legal team. And if we think that we truly have something viable that the board needs to take action on, we'll be bringing it back. But at this point, again, I really don't know what our clear next step is until we work with our legal team.
Okay. All right. So then will you be bringing this back to us at some point in the near future?
That is the intent. Yes. Yep. That we'll have some type of document or agreement that we can vet and potentially approve.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Then we'll move on to comments from the public. Mr. Geebies?
We can, of course, take telephone calls at 517-349-1232, or if there's anyone in the attendee area who would like to speak, you can use the raise hand feature. And we have connection marked as Joshua Robertson. We are going to be allowing him to speak at this time. Please begin your comments with your name and address for the public record.
And please remember, you're limited to 3 minutes, and be courteous in your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. And I will be brief. My name is Joshua Robertson. My address is 5879 Bayonne Avenue in Hazlet, Michigan. I just wanted to say thank you to the board for the appointment to the Transportation Commission, and just thought I'd give a little bit of an overview of who I am, and so you guys can kind of meet me a little bit too. I live in Hazlet, like I mentioned already, near Murphy Elementary in the Hillbrook Park subdivision or neighborhood. I live there with my wife and our 2 kids, and we are avid users of Lake Lansing, the parks, the interurban trail. We will be out there until the first snow and then transitioning to our winter gear. Professional background, have been in government relations, working either on the private side or in the public side for the last 13 years in downtown Lansing. Also worked for the Michigan Association of Counties for a brief period of time too in college. And then I most recently started with a company that's based in Kalamazoo. They do work in Michigan, in the Lansing area as well, on the health and human services side. And on the volunteering and community involvement perspective, very involved in the Habitat for Humanity. I sit on one of their boards, and I'm also very involved in the Ingham County chapter. And just wanted to say thank you again, and thanks for everything you guys do, and look forward to compliment your work.
Well, we look forward to hearing your wisdom on the Transportation Commission.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
There are no other hands and no other calls at this time, sir.
All right, if that's the case, then we're ready to have other matters.
Supervisor
Yes.
Stryker, I think Mr. McConnell has something to say.
Ah, okay. Mr. McConnell.
Thanks, Courtney. Just real quick, a couple of things. I wanted to underline the quality of the work that's being done by Mr. Harvey on the recycling and tree planting events, and partnering with our local agencies is really superb. Number 2, there was a communication in the board packet about noise ordinance, and I'd like to encourage the board to think closely about that, not an emergency issue, but the exemption on some of the yard equipment and cracking down on musical instruments, I think is worth thinking about. The last thing is, as we move forward on Four Corners of Okemos, I really hope that there's some way that we can, as a community, celebrate the movement that's going to be made on that project. And I don't know how to do that in an age of COVID, but I know that the community will celebrate movement forward, progress on that, and I hope we can find a way to engage the community on that. Thank you.
Because you were speaking as during the public part, you'll have to say your name and address, please, Mr. McConnell.
Pardon me, Bill McConnell, 4376 Manitou in Okemos. Thank you.
Right. And you serve on our planning commission, used to be an environmental commission. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else that I can't see that wants to comment during public comment? Okay, I guess not. Then we will go on to other matters from the board members. And again, I can't really see many people, so speak out if you have another comment.
Supervisor Stryker, Trustee
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to reach out to Chief Plaga and please extend our positive and healing thoughts to your police officer that was tested positive, and just let them know that, you know, we're thinking of them and wish them the best. Wish them the best.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Other board members, speak out, please. Okay, I don't believe anyone else has anything else they want to add. If that's the case, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Hofsmer, supported by Treasurer DeShane. All those in favor say aye.
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 I think everybody said aye, Mr. DREYFUS. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about the computer crash, but it crashed.